Welcome to People Love Process. This movie is going to be episode 1 of an ongoing series on my People Love Process channel, and I've titled it Over the Shoulder Vector Building. Now, unlike other content I produce, this is going to be recorded raw, and I'll take discarded design directions from real-world projects or old sketches I've never used, and they're just sitting in a folder where I put all the sketches that I do or doodles that I create. And I'm now going to take those and start bringing them to life in Adobe Illustrator. So you'll get to see the full build process, exploring color, rabbit trail stories, and more than likely me making mistakes or maybe even Illustrator crashing. Like I said, this is going to be raw. Unlike the content I normally produce and put on my YouTube channel, you get to see exactly what Illustrator looks like when I create. Meaning, when I'm doing a movie and I want to clean it up and get a higher production value, whether it's for my LinkedIn learning courses or most of the content, I should say, that I post on my People of Process YouTube channel, is I'll go in on things like the artboard, and I'll just go hide artboard. That just makes the background cleaner. And I'll also go to view, and I'll go rules, and I'll hide rules. So I tend to clean it up like that because it just looks better production-wise. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to turn those back on because when I work, I have rules on. And when I work, most of the time, I have the artboard turned on as well. So what's our theme for this one? Well, you see this sketch right here. In 2021, I did a piece of artwork every day for the whole year. I called this series Modern Culture. It was a personal creative project of mine. But I did a lot of sketches I never did anything with, and this is one of them. I always liked it. Not really sure what it is. It's kind of like I don't know, one of those Aztec kind of glyphs where it's a humanoid, but it's kind of funky. That's kind of my thinking here. So this is where it starts off, where it's just a sketch. This was in my file, so I scanned it in. This is pretty much exactly the size on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that I drew it, and I used a Papermate flare pen. I love drawing with those. Been using them for years, but man alive, they're getting more and more expensive, so I might be changing to a different pen, even though I like these. Now, I usually take this in and scan it with the flatbed scanner, bring it into Photoshop, and I might correct the image in terms of its exactitude in terms of fit in a square format. And so if I turn this layer on, you can see that's exactly what I did. I didn't redraw it. I just made it perfected in terms of a square and reflected left to right because this is going to be symmetric. So I just wanted to show you that. But all we're going to do now is just take this, and like anything, I'm just going to go ahead and set the transparency about 20. And then on a layer above it, we're going to build everything. Now, I don't have anything pre-built on this. And on this style, I actually built them at this size. So if we select what's the outside perimeter of the shape here, we're just talking, well, I like to work in points, but if we change it to inches, you can see this is roughly almost 3 inches, a little under 3 inches by 3 inches. Once again, I like working in points. Somebody asked me the other day on a comment on the YouTube channel, what's my reasoning for using points? All it is I prefer it because, like the metric system, it's divisible by 10. The United States, where I live, growing up, they were pushing the metric system back in the late 70s. And then at some point, they just gave up because nobody was adopting it or using it. It probably would make life a little easier because it is easier to do the math. That's why I don't use inches, because inches mean fractional numbers and points are just easy. I've been working in points for about 30 years now, and so I kind of think in points. So we're just going to go ahead and start building this. Once again, this can be symmetrical, so I'm just going to start and just going to create a shape like this. You're going to see me use plugins a lot, like dynamic corners, because I use these every day in the real world. It just makes life so much easier. We're not going to use the asset. We'll go ahead and tuck that up here, and I'll move it like that. So usually when I'm working, I have these astute graphic panels open, dynamic corners and PathScribe. Because frankly, dynamic corners was around about almost 7 years before Illustrator ripped it off and implemented it in a less intuitive way. So I use both actually, but I prefer dynamic corners. I think it works incredibly well. And so on a shape like this, I'm going to make scallops. Now, this is where I'll zoom in because I've dropped a guide in terms of the center of my design. We're working with kind of geometric shapes, so it doesn't have to be precise. But I'll go ahead, and all I'm going to do is, you can see we're going to have 5 here. So this is where I'll just bring it to the center, select these two, and go Option Command B to do a shape blend. Double click on the blending tool, go to steps, and we only want one, like that. And then you have to expand it like that. You might have to ungroup it. So now I know this side will reflect the exact same way. We'll go ahead and probably right about there, I guess. I'm only going to build half of this in terms of the base shapes on everything, like that. These two, I'll go ahead and fuse these. This is where I'll probably keep PathFinder open. We'll unite them like that. And by the way, if you're going to be using PathFinder, go into the settings here in the PathFinder options and just make sure you turn on remove redundant points, because as I fuse these together, if you don't, it'll leave an anchor point here where the bottom left was if I hadn't had this turned on. Now, it's not going to remove all redundant points. You're still going to get them, which is kind of standard issue for Adobe. They say, oh, here we go, this will remove redundant points. Well, don't really trust that, because it won't. All the time on simple things like this, it will. But on other things, it just won't. That's the frustrating part about Adobe, is when they come out with features, they kind of half-bake it, because nobody on their team actually uses the app they develop, believe it or not. I've been kind of hounding them about that for years, but they don't seem to care. But on another point, and here's a little rabbit trail that just happened this week, is I got an email from Adobe, and it was regarding the user voice forum, which is where you can go post bug issues or features that you'd like to see in Illustrator. And this goes back quite a bit. I forget how many years ago, at least 4 years ago, maybe even 5. I came up with the idea of being able to grab a swatch from the swatches panel and drag and drop it to the desktop. And it would allow me to kind of lock up swatches so I can do tonal value comparisons. And the reason why I pitched that idea is when I used Macromedia freehand, I used it for 15 years before I switched to Illustrator and CS2. That goes way back, like 2002 maybe? No, 2000, I don't know, 2002, 2003, something around that timeline when I switched to Illustrator. I've been using Illustrator a lot longer now, but you've seen me do tonal families. And so I had a friend of mine write me a script so I can create a new Illustrator document, and it just automatically has this layer with tonal family swatches. And so I do this. Well, I do that because for 15 years using Illustrator or freehand, I would just drag swatches from the freehand swatches palette to the desktop. And I loved it because it just made exploring color easier, because you could make better value judgments on one hue next to another hue to make sure, let's say, it has enough contrast, etc. And that's why I do this for the most part, is because I kind of miss that. Well, I got an email last week, and the Adobe engineer said that they're taking a look at it. My concept got over almost 500 votes now. A lot of people are. I haven't seen one person post anything negative like, "Oh, that's a stupid idea." Everybody who's responded to it seems to be in favor of it, and now they're considering to develop it, and so that's kind of cool. I really hope they do, and I hope they do a good job at doing it, and they don't half bake it like a lot of other features they have. So we'll see. We'll go ahead and shape blend these. By the way, that's one command that I have memorized. It's Option Command B. Option Command B to blend any two shapes. You select them, Option Command B, you get this. Then you can double click into the blending tool like we did previously, go to steps, and I only want one because this character only has 3 fingers. Then you have to expand it. Click OK. You might have to ungroup it. And that's, I think on this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 1, 2, and then I'm going to go 1. Just to give it a little more space, we'll make this arm a little wider, like that. And notice I have smart guides, so I can snap on a path, or if you're on an anchor, it just makes building this kind of stuff easier. And now I'll go all the way down here. And then I'll just snap it to that side, kind of like that. That looks good. These we can go ahead and unite. So we have that arm. Another People of Process movie that I'm going to be recording after I get done with working on this one is one that's going to be based off of lighting. Now, every summer I teach in the Master of Fine Art program at Hartford University in Connecticut. It's a total blast. I love doing it. I get to hang out with art students, so it kind of feels like I'm going back to art school every time I go there. And the teachers there are incredible. One teacher, Bill Thompson, did a really cool talk on lighting. And I just loved his presentation. So I went up to him afterwards. I was talking to him about it. And I just asked him, hey, would it be okay to share your presentation, your definition of different types of lighting to people that I create content for people of on my YouTube channel? And he said, sure. Gave me permission to show that. And here's a case where I will use the rounding tool because it's just faster, like that. So you can see we got his arm created. We'll go ahead and fuse these two, unite them. And Bill gave me permission anyway to show that. So that'll be in one of the upcoming movies that'll be on the channel. It's really cool. It was fun. He did all this lighting stuff, and the chair of the program, Chris Payne, he's like a nationally known illustrator, has done a lot of stuff for Time Magazine. He went up front and sat there, and they lighted him with from one lighting point of view, and then adding a secondary lighting. They put gel colors over the lights and kind of turned him into a horror creature right in front of your eyes. It was kind of cool. And so I'm going to be sharing that because I'm just going, wow, this is fun. This is kind of cool. I'll go ahead and copy this shape. I don't always recreate the wheel. I kind of want this. And we're going to make this down here. That kind of looks perverse. It's not what you guys think it is. It's just, I don't know. He's like an alien, I guess. So we'll see. We'll see. Move this over. And I'll center it. Then I can go ahead and fuse those two. The center one I'm not fusing yet because I'm going to wait till I reflect it. I want to get other elements in this. Whenever I do a sketch, if I'm doodling, like in an upcoming one of these, there's a sketch I did when I was invited to be on a podcast a friend of mine does on Adobe Live, where he invites different illustrators, designers on, and then they pick a theme, and then it's like a competition thing. So I went on that, and oops, what did I do there? Let's try that again. There we go. And that was kind of fun. Why did I bring that up? There's a see, this is what I'm talking about, Rod. Now I can't remember why I even brought something up, which is actually what happens in real life when I'm working. It's like I'll get easily distracted. Anyway, one of the sketches that I came up for when he asked me to be on that, I really like the art, and it's an art style, one of my favorite to work in. I haven't covered it on People of Process yet, and so that's why I want to make it a future episode of what I'm doing now on over-the-shoulder building. Like that. We'll go ahead and take these because all these will be rounded like this. This is one reason I like dynamic corners. I can go and say, what's the corner radius here? And because on Smart Guides, I have it set up to show me what in this case, the corner radius, I can click it. That locks it into place. Then I can apply it to this one and then apply it to this one. That's why I love using it. You can't do that with the corner widget in Illustrator natively. This is where I'm just going to take this whole shape, see if I can save some time by making my foot based off of his arm, like that. I'm going to have to go a lot smaller. Kind of like that. And we'll go something like that. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Okay, this is going to go across here, so I'll start it. I don't know, I'll go right about there. There we go. Teaching that master's program's a lot of fun. Most of the students going through it is I would call traditionally based artists, meaning a lot of them are working in a very painterly style, which is great. Most of them, I'd say the vast majority of them use Procreate. Procreate, even though Adobe's been chasing them and trying to catch up with them as much as they can via their equivalent, which would be Adobe Fresco, I'm not so sure they're going to be able to pull it off. They haven't so far, in my opinion. Procreate they're so adaptive to the user base, unlike Adobe. Adobe users can ask for things for decades, and Adobe doesn't do anything. Procreate users, if they ask for something, guess what? They're usually going to get it. That's the main difference between the culture of Adobe and the culture of a company like Procreate, or I'm not even sure who the company is that creates it, but it's a really great program. Not only that, it's so easy to create brushes. Like, I don't even use Procreate really, but I created a brush set just because it's so easy to create brushes. It's kind of fun too. So If you use Procreate and you want a brush set, you can go to retrosupplycompany.com, and there's several brush sets I have there. They're available for purchase, and they work in Procreate, Photoshop, Illustrator, and they're really kind of cool. Okay, I think we got most of the base shape and content for both. I'm going to I'll go ahead and round this one. That one will be like that, but on these, I'm going to wait till we reflect it. So now I'm just going to take the left side, clone it, Command-C, Command-F, go to reflect, snap on the central, reflect it. Now I have those all done. I don't want to fuse these circles like that. Now we can go ahead and unite the left and right. Then we can take the central ones. Looks like his little dinghy down there. Like that. Then I'll go ahead and round these. Select these. And these are, these two areas, or these type areas, are where I'll use the corner widget. It's just a little faster than trying to use dynamic corners. Okay, that's looking kind of good. I almost think on my sketch, I want to go a little lighter. So this is where I'll even do 10. That's better. I just like seeing the focus on the shapes. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, the same approach where I'm going to be building the content on the inner part the same way, but I'm not going to I'm going to be using strokes basically to create gaps, because I want all these to be gaps. But I'll still use basic shapes to construct what I need to create, like his nose here. And this is where I'll go into the scissor tool, get rid of that. Then that'll become that. Like this. Now this is going to be nothing here, so that's why I'm stopping it at that point. And I want it to go right down there. Then this is where I'll use the line tool to create elements. Go to the elliptical tool. This will become the inner part of the eye. Again, I'll go to the scissor. The inner part of the eye won't be isn't going to be a stroke. It'll just be a fill. Give him nice rosy cheeks. I want these to be perfect half circles, so something like that. I'm kind of cheating here because I want to create this even. So I'm going to start here and figure out the curve like that. Then I can select the cheeks, go to the shape building tool, and just edit that like this. Then get rid of that. I'm going to go here and borrow from this shape, make a copy, select this, go intersect. Oop. That way I can make the teeth, make it a little easier. And these won't be outlines either. These will be solid. They can go just a little smaller too. Something like that. And I probably am not even going to trim them on the bottom because it'll be easier to do what I need to do, just leaving them as is. There we go. This guy doesn't brush his teeth. That's why he doesn't have a full set. Bring that eye over. We'll start working on the central area. Want this to be even though my drawing wasn't perfect, I do want this centered like that. And we'll create the next one like this. Come up here. I think this one I'm going to make there. I like that better. As I'm working, I tend to use the eyedropper just to keep all the lines in check. We'll go up here. I'm going to create this line. I want it to be kind of curved like the mouth, something like that. Doesn't matter where it goes off on each side, just the center point that matters. And then select this, go to shape building tool, delete that line, and then we'll delete this. No, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Why is it doing that? I just want that line. There we go. And then, let's see, we'll do this and this. Like that. So we're getting there. Go down below. Oops. Clone it first. Command C, Command F. That goes back to my freehand days, the clone, because that's what they called it in Adobe Illustrator. They called it, they had a clone command where you could hit it and it'd clone a shape. And they didn't have that in Illustrator. That was one of the first things I learned how to set up because I use it all the time in freehand. And so I created it by creating a keyboard shortcut, which is F3, and that does two commands. It does a copy, paste in front, actually does three commands, paste in front, and then object, arrange, bring to front, which you can't see because I don't have an object selected. And the third command is arrange, bring to front. So it does three commands. And I just recorded in action, recorded those, applied it to the F3 key. So now, like for example, with this shape selected, I can just go F3. And it's created a clone of it. So I still kind of call it a clone, even though it's just a keyboard shortcut. Now, if you don't have keyboard shortcuts set up, watch my keyboard shortcut movie because it's going to save you so much time. Okay, notice how this isn't snapping right on the path. This is the snapping bug in Illustrator. So you have to kind of pull past it, almost deselect at times, then go up, and then it will act the way it should. That's something they've known about for a decade plus now, and they still haven't fixed it. And so when they sent me the email yesterday about the being able to move drag and drop swatches to the desktop, I said, yeah, I vote for number 2. But by the way, since I have your attention, I said in my comment, when are you going to fix the snapping bug in Illustrator? So I've been bugging them about it for literally over a decade, and they still, because they don't use it, they don't see the importance of why it's such an issue. So many people, when I do workshops, something like that will come up, and I'll show them, just like I showed you here with this, and I said, how many people run into that? Everybody raises their hand. And I go, and then my second question is, how many of you think it was something you did that caused the problem? Again, every hand goes up. That's the problem, and that's why Adobe doesn't recognize it, because they don't actually use their own software, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. Why would you develop software that nobody on the team actually uses? Do you think that's great insight? And some people might go, well, they have beta testers. Well, you know what? I'm on their beta testing. I see what they ask beta testers to do, and all it is to golf clap the developers. The developers say, hey, we have this new feature we're coming out with. Could you try it? Okay, that's fine. That's part of beta testing, of course, but how about fixing the bugs that you introduced and they're still around? How about you focus a little bit of your time on that as well? And that's what they don't do such a good job about. Or they'll come out with a half-baked feature, and it's not as useful as they try to market it as. Intertwine's a good example of that. I mean, yeah, you can mock it up. That's what Intertwine does. But you still have to build it manually. You don't want to deliver a brand asset, for example, a monogram, let's say. You don't want to deliver it like that. You have to clean it up, because that's what you do. It's like, well, no. And one of their engineers got pissed at me one time on the beta forum, which they do through Slack. And he goes, what do you mean half-baked? And I go, well, if you give me the opportunity, I'll explain it to you, and you should be able to understand exactly what I mean. And he said, okay, DM me what you mean. So I did. And he admitted, he goes, well, yeah, I get what you're saying now. I go, well, that's the thing, though. Couldn't you make it so, let's say you mock up with Intertwine and you visually get what you want, but all it is masked content that can't be used as final art. Not to mention there's problems with PDF saving using it when it first came out. And I said, couldn't you add something that once something is intertwined and it's implemented on a design, couldn't something pop up in the properties panel, let's say, and say, expand intertwine? And then he goes, well, what would that do? And I go, well, let's say you had that and I clicked it, it would just build it to be clean based off of what I mocked up in Intertwine. I go, and I said to him, I don't even know if you guys can do that, but that would actually be very helpful and save a lot of time. Well, yeah, we could do that. And I go, well, then that's what you need to add. Could you add that? And he goes, and then it's like the political aspect of development. Well, yeah, but I'm not sure I could get people on board with it. So it's not just if they can do it, it's because they're being directed from above to do certain things. And that tends to be part of the problem with a culture of a company that big. Marketing directors are telling them what they want them to do, not the user base, really. And it's mainly because it will push more users to Creative Cloud, which will make more money and make their stockholders happy. So that tends to be kind of the focus, unfortunately. And because of that, you get half-baked features, which could be very, very, if they would have added that, that would have made it amazingly simple. It's very simple to mock something up, but you still have to spend the time to build it out manually, so it doesn't really help you to make your workflow more efficient. It just mocks it up. So same thing with the grid repeat, mocks up a pattern. And I told them this one too. I said it'd be really helpful if you could set up a pattern with grid repeat. Your interface is doing all the math, so why can't you have something show up on the properties panel that says create pattern swatch based off of the grid repeat you did? And then it would take that math and it would actually make a pattern swatch. That would be helpful. Nope, doesn't do that. You can't save it. You can't save it as a graphic style. And then I go, it's just another example of you coming up with a okay concept, but in all practicality, it doesn't really save a whole lot of time. And he understood why I said half-baked after I took the time to explain it to him. But I don't think it's going to change anything. So that's the kind of bummer aspect about it. It's like, I'd like to see them kind of change their attitude about some of these things. I think I'm going to break the foot here like that. I have a lot of friends who work for Adobe, a lot of engineers who used to be on the Illustrator team. One of them's now on the type team. And I'm still friends with them. They never got offended, really, when I would share insight like that. They actually appreciated it. That's why they invited me to go to India back in 2009 to be part of their summit and to see the roadmap of where they're going to be taking Illustrator. And many of the features now coming out in Illustrator, like the recolor tool and stuff, all of that was shown to the 14 designers that they had invited over there, me being one of them. And we actually got to vote on it. And I actually voted for the recolor. I thought that was a helpful feature. And that does work really good. Now, the generative recolor, I think it's more hype. It's basically just the same recolor feature. They just slightly modified it, or automated it, that is. Okay, so we have most of the content built here. I'm just going to take this and try. I don't think I'm going to do his, I guess I'll do his knee. Let's see. I like things associating with other things, so I don't want it to go that far. Now I'm going to, before I knock any of those out, I'm going to make adjustments because these will be thicker and I might want to align it with edges of other things. But at this point, I don't need to worry about that. So I'm just going to take everything we don't have reflected on the right, like this, all these. Well, it'll be a copy of that. That's okay. I'll clone it, Command-C, Command-F, find a central anchor point like this. Get rid of that. We don't need it. There we go. That's looking good. I don't even know what I'm going to call this dude. Actually, now that I'm looking at this would be kind of cool if we bring it over like that. And then maybe I'm just going to break it so it doesn't go through this part. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so next stage, I'm going to take this. I'm going to go like, we're going to color blue, get rid of the outline like that. Take all the outlines we did, minus these. We don't need these. Okay, now I'm going to make them white because I want to figure out what weight to make them. Kind of depends on how big I'm going to make this design. I think it'd look cool on a t-shirt, so I'm going to go a little thicker. Something like that. These won't be like this. These will be kind of like that. Now, all these shapes that are shown in blue are actually, oh, it looks like I forgot one. There we go. Actually, these as well. Let's not forget these. These won't be strokes, it'll just be fills for the teeth. So everything white here in terms of these will just be the gap. So you'll see the background color. So if this is going to be on a dark color shirt, these eyes, inner part of the eyes are going to actually be dark, and that's what I want. So that's kind of my thinking here. So it'll just be fills. There won't be any strokes on this. But I think that's looking pretty much the way I want it. Let's go ahead and deselect these things I don't want, like this. Don't want the blue, don't want the eyes, don't want the teeth. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to select everything, copy it, go to my layers, notice my X layer, and then, oops, looks like I got my guides in there, and I group it. This is just so I have on, we're going to move the guide back to the build layer, just so I have a backup now. So if I ever want to go back, I can. I do that all the time. It's like my vector junk drawer, of course. Deselect the blue, deselect these circles, deselect the eyes, deselect the teeth. So all we have is get rid of the guide. Now all we have, you can see, is just the white strokes. That's what we want. Now to see it better, we can go here, or maybe we'll just do a different color. We'll do gold, like that. So this is where I'll go to Object, I'll go to Path, I'll go to Outline Stroke. So it's going to turn into shapes. As soon as it turns into shapes, this is where I can go Unite. So it fuses all those shapes into one shape, but it's going to create a group by default. This is why you'll want to go here and turn it into a compound path. And then once it's a compound path that's sitting on top of the blue shape, I can select the blue shape and just minus front. So it punches it through and breaks these into all little shapes. So I'm going to ungroup those and send them to the back like that. So you can see we have this. We'll select this eye, and all I'm going to do is minus front. Knock these out like that. And on all these, I'll go Unite. Make sure it's a compound. Select this and punch it out. So now we have his teeth the way I want it. And I think I was going to put a gap here, but now I'm thinking that'd make this too small. Well, I'm still going to try it because I don't like how this kind of comes out like that. So, and when you're kind of doing a graphic style like this, it's easier to do it after you expand the strokes because strokes work from the center out. So it's kind of gets wonky at times figuring out the spacing. So I'm just creating a shape that matches what the stroke was. And then if I go here like this, we'll color white just so we can see. This just looks too small, so I think what I'm going to do is, I think we did 2.5, so I'm going to go 1, 2. And I think that looks better. Let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, I like it breaking, so we'll call this a loincloth down here at the bottom. I think that looks better, so I'm just going to copy this, snap it to this side, and just go 1, 2 to match it like that. And I can select this, unite it. It's going to be a group. Change it to a compound, select the loincloth, minus front, and then we'll just ungroup it so this is separate. There. I like that because it separates the legs. So you can see we have most of the design, kind of the base art that is, figured out. Let's go ahead and go back here. We can actually get rid of this bounding box, or maybe just move it up here to the X layer. We'll take all these circles like that. I think that's looking pretty good. We don't need this guide anymore. Get rid of it. So now comes the fun part. This is where I start coloring. Now, when it comes to color, I was talking about the tonal values, and I had a friend of mine, Igor. He's a AI user. He's on the beta team, but he's really smart when it comes to figuring out scripts for things in Illustrator. And he created this for me so I can create a tonal family. And actually, if I go here to scripts and I go to setup layers or the setup new doc, both of these will create these layers that'll just be sketch, build, temp, and tonal family, and the X layer. And it has these already prefabricated in it, so I don't have to go in here and rebuild all these. I can just start figuring out my colors. Now, in my new document setup for Illustrator, these colors all auto-load. So these are working colors I've used in real-world projects. They've printed with them. I know they're already going to look good. They're just raw CMYK. When I'm doing illustrative type things, I never use Pantone. That'd just be a nightmare speccing like 50 colors for a design if it's pretty complex. But they've all been printed in the real world and they work great. But this is where I start. And so on a design like this, I'm thinking we'll start with a dark color. Oops. Don't need outline, just a fill, kind of like that. I don't have a nice teal, so I think what I'm going to do is kind of mix one. So we'll go in here. Don't want red, don't want black. Bring this up. Color kind of like that. Bring it in here, double click, change it to global. So I'll select this. We'll get a nice teal in there. Orange goes with teal. Something like maybe even more. I think I'm going to bump it up to, we'll go 52, something like that. That looks good. A nice kind of lime green, no outline. And I don't want to get too many colors in it. I just want enough that I think we'll use really light blue that'll work like. So I think I'm going to keep these colors in it. So let's just move them down right above. We can get rid of those. And we'll experiment with this. Now, I might decide later to add more, but this is where I think his hands and part of his feet, and let's say the base part of his face, all these will be this blue. We'll make that here. Maybe part of his legs. Make these down here. And we'll do that. We'll make those teal. Like that. Oh, wait. I might change that. These, I might make green. Okay, I think we need one more color. I think I need another warm color. So I'm going to go over here. And what is this? I can make it a little darker like that. And then we'll add red. I think I like that. Make that red. These will be kind of the lighter gray. So on a dark shirt, it'll read more or less like, not sure what color to make these. Maybe green? No. Orange? We'll make orange. I might come back and change that. So I'm trying to balance the colors as it's applied to things here. So now that I'm looking at this looks like a Pokemon ball of sorts. Like that. Maybe these are blue. Green. Gold. Blue. And I don't want any one color to be grouped in an area too much. Oh, I like that on the face better. Maybe that. See, this is the part I'll think about, and I think it needs more red here. Let's see, what colors do we not have here? We don't have green in here. Maybe I'll make those are too close. We'll try this with green. There we go. Need more green. Maybe we make these green. And red. Color here. No. Orange. Eventually, I want to make this series like a live stream. That way I have a flexibility of going an hour or less, or maybe it goes 3 hours on something more complex. But this is where I'd probably turn to whoever's watching and go, recommend something, and I'll try it. I think we need another color, actually. I was trying to keep this simplified, but I think I added, I already added maybe too many colors. Oops, not an outline. Fill. Too yellow. That's better. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, I think I'm gonna make that blue. Then I'll turn these into the yellow. Ooh, I kind of like that yellow. That looks good. Let's turn these into yellow, see what that. I think I like, oh, I forgot these here. So we'll go yellow on this. And we'll go, no, there. Red, and then maybe change this to blue. Maybe change that one to red. No. Red. Then we'll go. Boy, this I'm struggling with this. This kind of reminds me of the Chrome icon or whatever. Okay. I'm not sure if I like that. We'll try with a darker color in the background first before we make any more decisions. This blue might actually be too dark on a dark background, so we'll figure that out. This is the odd man out. Everything is pretty much the same left to right, but I don't know, maybe this is like a code, whatever. Okay, let's try something here. So if this is the color of the shirt, let's say it's a black shirt. That looks kind of cool. I kind of like that. But maybe this color could be even lighter. I don't remember how much black I have in it. Maybe we go down 20. Yeah, that actually looks good. Add a little more red to it. Ooh. That looks good. What's it look like without? It needs some. I kind of like that. That looks good. And I think on this, we're not even going to go blue. We're just going to go white. Then it really focuses on the eyes. So get rid of the tonal family. I think I'm liking this. We'll just go ahead and flood the whole background. Like that. That looks pretty cool. I'm not sure. I'm going to try a few things here. I'm going to try this red. I don't know if I like. I bet that'll look better. I do like that better. I'm going to select the black. I'm just going to lock it so I can't select it. I don't like the orange here. So maybe this could be blue. Then this would need to change. Maybe that's yellow. I think that looks okay. Now, if I really wanted to be a stickler, I like to go back on artwork like this, and I did this in my Modern Culture series. Well, I would go in and I would add little rounds like this on everything. Is it needed? No, but I think it looks really nice like that. But I'm not going to spend that time because that's makes for a very monotonous, boring video. But I think this looks good. Now it's at this point, I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this layer because what I want to do now is I want to work out a pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and group everything here so it's just one unit. And I think the pattern I want is the spacing I have between his head and his arms is kind of a nice balance. I don't want to go too thin. Otherwise, the pattern would look a little tight, in my opinion. So I'm going to use this as my framework in terms of I'll go here, snap it to the right. I'll clone it. I'll go here, snap it to the left. Take both of these, clone it, and I'm just going to go like this because these will be the same proportion at the top. Why am I doing this? Well, because then I'll snap to this anchor, snap to that anchor, drag this over, snap there, and snap there. We'll go to the graphic styles, I'll turn it to an outline. So you can see I have the same buffer of space around everything. We can get rid of those. And this thickness is this wide. So I'm going to take that, copy it, select this bounding box we created, and I'm going to go offset. I'm going to punch in negative, paste that number like this, and now we have the bounding box between our artwork. So why am I doing that? Because that's going to help me create the pattern I want to create. So I'm just going to select all three of these items, the group shapes that are colored and the two bounding boxes. And all I'm going to do is drag and drop it right into the swatches panel, deselect first. Then we'll click into this. And by the way, I haven't even saved yet. So I'm going to go ahead and save just in case if it does crash, because sometimes the pattern tool can be a little hinky. We're going to click into this, and you don't see any background because it's just going to be the white of the background, but you can see it's tiling it based off of those bounding boxes. So if we go to the pattern tile tool here and I click it, it's snapping to those, and that's fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and snap it all the way down. You can see it bumps on the edge. That's what we didn't want, so that's why I created that buffer. But this is kind of a boring pattern. So what we want to do is we want to go to grid, and we're going to go brick by row, like that, and it's just going to shift it. And you can see this is a half shift. So it's breaking it in half, and this is the pattern we're getting. And I think that looks kind of cool. So what we can do is we can just select our bounding boxes and delete them, and now we have a cool pattern. So we're going to name this one, man, I don't even know what to name this dude. Let's call him, I don't know, Nebus. I have no idea why, but sure, why not? Nebus 1 pattern, like that. And to get back to the desktop, you can just double click on any part of the background here. You can go up here and just click back here, or you can just hit escape, and it'll bring you back to the artboard. And you can see we have our pattern here. That's fine. And let's go ahead and click on this temp layer. We'll just name it pattern, like that. We'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit so we can see the full artboard. We'll go ahead and put our PathFinder away. We're going to take this shape, and notice it has a fill of our pattern swatch we just created. So we're going to go ahead and fill in our pattern swatch, and the size you built your pattern is the pattern it's going to fill it with. So if you don't want it this big, you can either create your pattern swatch smaller, or in this case, we can just go to the scale tool here. Just make sure to turn off transform objects, because we just want it to transform the pattern, and then we can size the pattern. So let's say we want this 65% of what is shown. We can preview it, and it will size that pattern down like this. Now, maybe you want it to not be perfect horizontal, that is. So we can go to the rotate tool, click on it, do the same thing, make sure you have transform object off, but you have transform patterns checked, and then we can apply this, and it will put a cool kind of orientation on our pattern, and we can click it. Now, this is where the appearance panel comes into play. You can see we have a fill here, so I'm just going to go and add a new fill. So we're adding a second fill. It's going to default to the pattern, so we'll keep the one on top of the pattern, but on the one below, we're going to go here, and we're going to select our process black for the background, like that. And so now this one shape, if I select this rectangle, it has two fills. It has a pattern on top, it has the black underneath, and that's going to work great. But what you can do with something like this, once you have it set up, is you can create a graphic style from it. So if I select this and I just drag it down into the graphic styles, we can go ahead and double click on the graphic style and name it pattern 1, like that. We have it saved. So if we go to another layer, let's say here, let's say you have a circle, create a circle, then you can just simply apply that graphic style, and that's how you can utilize a pattern like this. Now, I think this might make a cool t-shirt, but I'm gonna set up one more pattern because I want to show you something. So we're going to go back here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to adjust this one. So what I want to do is I want to make sure we're on the right layer. Do that. Select this. I'm going to go path. I'm going to go add anchor points. It's going to add anchor points there. And all I'm doing that for is so I can reduce this half the width we had it, like that. And then I'm going to take this artwork and I'm going to clone it. And I'll bring it over here like this. And I'll go like that. Like that. We're just randomizing the pattern even more by doing this. Then I'll take this, clone it, and I'll rotate it. Okay. Like that. And we'll zoom in. At times, it's hard to snap at certain zoom ratios. You do have to zoom in at times. Okay, so we've just created a small grid. Now, again, if you don't want your pattern to be this big by default, just scale it before you drag and drop it into your swatches panel. So we've scaled it. We'll drag and drop it, deselect, click into this. We'll call this Nebus 2 pattern. And all we're going to do is it's going to use that same bounding box. So we'll select this. We're going to go brick by row, and it's going to create it in half. But what it does is it just you want to use something that's not even, like a half, like 1/3. That way it'll break it up. You could even do 1/4, and then it will cut it in half going that way. And I think that might be a little more interesting as a pattern. Then the other thing we want to do is just select the guides. And this is where I'll use, if you go to select and you go to same and you go to stroke color, notice I have an option F2 because I never want to have to do that. But I want to get rid of our guide so it's not part of our artwork. So I'll go option F2, it selects all the guides, then I just delete them. And so now our artwork is ready to go. We can go ahead and hit escape to go back to the artboard. We'll go to this pattern. I'll make a copy of this layer like that. We'll select this. And we're just going to get rid of the pattern that we had applied and create a new fill. So it has a second fill. Go here, select the pattern we just created. You can see how that fills in. Now, if we want to adjust that, make sure you have the layer in the appearance panel selected. We'll go to rotate, deselect, transform, so we get that same angle we wanted before. Click OK. And this is how you can randomize it even more. And I think if you compare this one to this one, this is okay, but it looks a little replicated. This looks far more custom and works better, in my opinion, as a repeat pattern. I like how this came out. This would actually make a really cool lounge shirt. But hopefully you enjoyed this and you got some useful tips in it. And I really like, this is kind of a fun format for me because I can share a lot of different things on the fly in a raw format like this. I'm still not sure what I could use this specific design for, but it really doesn't matter if the context is creating for no other reason than to have fun. At some point, I'd like to do these live, as I stated earlier, but still getting that all worked out so I can have a live cam and make it far more interactive via a stream. I just want to do it at a high quality. I don't want to do it as hostage quality video. I don't have a great camera to use in a live stream, so I'm saving up for that. And if you access the exercise files for this movie, and by the way, every one of the over-the-shoulder exercise file will be free. Nobody has to pay for that. So you can download it. So make sure to check out the link included in the description for this movie. Remember, the exercise files for everything else on People of Process can always be accessed the exact same way. And if you access those, I provide all those assets for relatively inexpensive. It has a lot of resources in it you can use in your own projects, so take advantage of it. And because if you do access those, it really does support my channel and helps me to continue to focus on creating content for this channel. I enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy watching it. And until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.